Wednesday, February 8th. Welcome to this week's edition of CT Pulse on the HAN Network. I'm Kate Czaplinski.
And I'm Josh Fisher. Today we're going to be joined by the managing editor of our New Canaan Advertiser to talk about a sober house that's caused a lot of headlines and comments in New Canaan. We're also going to take a look at the governor's budget and that's going to be released today officially. And Kate, I don't know if you heard, but there might be some snow tomorrow.
There might be some snow on the way, so we're going to welcome Jacob Mizell of swctweather.com to preview some of that, because Josh, tomorrow we're going to be busy with snowcasting.
Yes, all day long. We're going to have three special storm-related broadcasts at 8:30, 10:30, and either 12 or 12:30, depending on what Kate and Frank decide to do.
Now, Josh, just a few weeks ago, we've had Steve Coulter on the show to talk about a proposal for a high-end rehab facility in Ridgefield that actually was withdrawn after so much backlash from neighbors. And it reminded me of this story that we welcome Michael Katarivas, managing editor of the New Canaan Advertiser, on to discuss, which is a sober house, which is now open in New Canaan, right, Michael?
Correct.
But there's been some backlash from neighbors. First, tell us, when did the sober house open?
It opened in the very beginning of January. The owners of the sober house got a lease that started in January, and they basically opened for operation then. And now I don't think there's. I think there's only one or two actual residents there now, but that's when it opened.
So this is on West Road in New Canaan, which is a northern residential area of New Canaan, right? It's not in a business district.
No. It's very rural over there. Yeah.
Which is kind of
very
similar
expensive
to what we
houses
saw
too.
In that Ridgefield proposal as well.
I mean, according to your stories, it's a $5.7 million house. It's 8,000 square feet. How have the neighbors reacted?
Well, they're not happy because I mean, they're not really trying to say that there's anything wrong with sober houses per se, but they weren't told of its existence. It suddenly just popped up. It was an empty house for sale, and then suddenly one neighbor found out somehow that it's a sober house and it is what it is, which is a rehab center basically for 6 or 8 up to 8 men living there for up to 3 months each, and they're kind of wondering, how did this happen? It's just like, what can we do about it if there's anything to be done about it? What's the town doing about it? Who's on top of it in terms of like making sure that they're doing things right, or that they're having inspections, and so there's a lot of angst by these neighbors.
Now, what you've kind of talked about in your reporting is that there isn't much that the town or residents can do, and why is that?
Well, it's sober houses and people recovering from alcohol or drug abuse are considered disabled under the American Disabilities Act. So federal regulations preclude local authorities from having any sway over these houses. So they're allowed to exist without really going to the town and asking for permission. P&Z regulations don't apply. So that's basically where it stands. So and there are sober houses all over the country and all over Connecticut. So the neighbors in this town of New Canaan on West Road, these are multi-million-dollar houses. So they're concerned about a lot of different issues, and they're trying to find out what can be done, as I say. And the town attorney, Ira Bloom, who represents several towns in Connecticut in Fairfield County, basically sent an email to the first selectman saying that the sober house is allowed to exist. There's anything anyone can do about it, and that's it. So it's kind of a very serious topic in town right now. You
had written that only in New Canaan would people get upset about a bunch of white people moving into a mansion.
Well, that was tongue-in-cheek, obviously.
Yes. And we have some photos. You actually got to look inside of this place.
I did go to the sober house and was allowed inside as a reporter to, show people who haven't been inside what it looks like and what the rooms are like. It's a gorgeous house, obviously, $5.7 million, and the residents of this house are going to be basically very wealthy individuals, men over age 30. It costs $12,000 a month to stay there. So it's not like there's going to be
$12,000 a month.
$12,000 a month to stay there. So I mean, the clientele is obviously upscale, but it's still people are still wondering, have a lot of questions about it.
Yeah. Now, you actually spoke to one of the operators. He gave you kind of an in-depth interview
Yes.
about this sober house. And he spoke about that $12,000 number, saying maybe it presented something that wasn't fully accurate. What did he say about that, that there's a lot of costs on their end?
Well, he did say, first of all, that they don't charge everyone $12,000 if they don't, they get referrals from facilities that people in the area need a place to stay. And they obviously will charge $12,000 a month, but he said it's not set in stone that they won't turn people away if they have room and they can't afford the full $12,000. That's one thing he said. And he also said that he's a recovering addict as well, and his partner is as well. They run the Lighthouse. That's the name of the company. They have a facility in Darien that's been there for about a year, a sober house, and this is their second. So he just pointed out that there's a lot, and there's obviously a lot of expenses with the house. They have someone living there full time. There's a chef, and there's transportation. There's obviously they have to pay rent to the house. I think they pay $14,000 a month. That's what we were told.
Okay.
But so I mean, it's not just a pure profit center, which is what a lot of people think, that he's just trying to make a buck. I mean, he told me that, listen, if it does well, there'll obviously be money to be made. But he's not really in business specifically just to try to make a fast profit. He has a full-time job in Bridgeport at a not-for-profit organization.
Right.
He has a full-time job there. So
But this is a for-profit, technically speaking?
it certainly is a for-profit.
Right.
Yeah.
And so this is like a halfway house. Like, these are people who've gone to a rehab, like Silver Hill or something like that, and then
Yes.
before they go back into their regular life, they kind of ease back into
That's exactly right. They've all gone through about a 30-day in-facility treatment, and a lot of them aren't ready to just immediately go back home. As Tony Kinnery, the owner of the co-owner, told me that their home situations are usually troubled in some ways, maybe mostly because of them, but there could be other people in the house that are having issues, and they've already spent a lot of money at the facility, and so the halfway is kind of like in between going back full time to work or to their homes rather, and not doing
But
that.
that word halfway house has such a negative connotation when you see a lot of people. So it's interesting they go with the sober house name more closely, though. As you said, just halfway means in between treatment and going home.
Well, they don't really call themselves a sober house. They're called they're the Lighthouse. That's the name of the facility. But obviously, sober house and halfway house are sort of the same words if you just look them up.
Right.
And so that's where that stands.
And he also addressed when you spoke to one of the operators, because this came up in the Ridgefield debate over a rehab facility moving into a residential neighborhood, and he points out that a lot of people work from home. If you look at town records, a lot of those homes in that area actually have businesses operating out of them.
Well, the neighbors' main argument. Well, they have other arguments, but one of their main arguments, and a lot of the town people's argument, is that this is a business in a residential zone, in a very expensive residential zone. And he told me, and I wasn't arguing with him, he's just what he told me. He said that there are 7 businesses operating on West Road in addition to his, including one next door to him. Now, those could be they could be lawyers, or they could be home businesses, that kind of thing. But it really doesn't matter, because they already have the federal and state regulations allowing them to exist. Right. So, I mean, I was told by the first selectman, Rob Malazzi, that they're looking into it. And I was told by the chairman of the town council that they'll see they want to make sure that everything's on the up and up in the homes. But both of them have the email from the town attorney basically saying it's hands off. There's nothing they could do. And other towns have had sober houses exist. Right. And Tony Kinnery actually told me that he lives in Westport, and he said years ago a sober house existed across the street from him, and he was wondering about it, and he went to the town hall to see if they were allowed to exist, was told they are, and so that's where they are. They're here to stay.
Now, this is interesting. In a separate sober house owned by different people, but in Easton there's a sober house called Nexus House, and it made some headlines back in December because police recovered $60,000 worth of crystal meth there.
Yeah.
And that led to a community meeting with the first selectman there and officials. And again, as the town said, there's nothing they can do, but the managers of that house basically said, we have a no drug policy, so we were enforcing that policy by turning this person in with crystal meth and removing them from that facility. And do you see in the future, if problems were to arise at this sober house, that the managers would be open to at least talking to the community, meeting with town officials? And
The owners of the sober house told me that they would be happy to meet with the officials, town officials, anytime. They would be happy to have the town come and inspect the house. And also, it's not like these residents are just there and on their own. They're being drug tested up to 4 times a day with breathalyzers. A lot of them go to work. Most of them are going to work. They work in the city. They're well-to-do. They're successful people. And they have to take a breathalyzer 4 times a day, and the breathalyzer is such that it shows their picture taking it. It's not just like anyone can just take it. It shows them taking it, and then it immediately registers. So they're being monitored very closely. But that's not just the main. The neighbors are not complaining specifically about these people. They're just complaining about the whole concept of the house existing near to them, and they're very worried about their real estate values. These are multi-million-dollar houses, and they think they moved to New Canaan. These people who are very wealthy, and they had no idea that this could occur.
So this is similar to what we saw in Ridgefield and different also. But in Ridgefield, people were upset because it was a residential area and surrounded by a lot of a wealthy area of Ridgefield, and moving in a facility and changing the use of what people wanted. Now that would have been an actual hospital
Yes.
versus this is
It's a
so
big
there's
it's a
different
difference.
rules. So
It's a
like
difference,
in
yeah.
Ridgefield, they needed actually a zoning variance
Right.
to allow to turn this big mansion into a hospital. Here, because
Right.
it is just housing people,
Right.
it falls under the ADA and allows. They don't even need to tell the town, right? Basically,
They
that they're
didn't.
moving in.
They had no. There's
There's no
requirement.
sign out front that
There's-
says the lighthouse.
No, there isn't going to be a sign. But
Be
there's-
wary of sober
they
people.
They had no requirement to do anything, and they have said that they should have alerted people and spoken to the neighbors.
Yeah. I think the neighbors called it a little devious and
Well,
in their letter.
There's a letter from we mentioned about 24 or
yeah.
so residents in the area on West Road and surrounding areas like Turtleback and everything, and and it gets deep in that no longer will New Canaan be a charming, family-friendly place. If residents decide they want to move, historical metrics of similar situations show they'll take a loss when they sell their homes, and in the meantime, they'll continue to pay sky-high property taxes for their significantly devalued homes. A business in one residential area of New Canaan could pave the way for a flurry of similar rehab facilities in our town, given the large number of unsold homes.
Go ahead,
go
sorry.
ahead.
I was just going to say, it is interesting, too. They say at the end of their letter, let's work together to find a better place for rehab in an area which isn't so full of families and children. And as we should say, this
It'll be
isn't
like,
a rehab.
like Stanford or Norwalk, right?
Probably in there.
Well, first of all, I am meeting with the neighbors on Thursday to get their side of the story. But I mean, you can understand what they're saying.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, certainly.
It's whether their houses are going to be devalued, who knows?
Right.
But they're concerned with that possibility, and you hate to say it, but it's just like there's like three issues in town right now: the Merritt Village apartment complex, Grace Farms, and Roger Sherman Inn, and most of the opposition to them comes from the neighbors around those projects. I mean, the rest of the people in town aren't that up in arms about it. But I mean, if you have a house and suddenly next door to you is a halfway house,
You're going to be concerned.
And I think it's like the situation that's going on now. I know you have specifically in the Advertisers been covering the sluggish real estate market in New Canaan, and New Canaan is not alone in that. We see that in other towns such as Ridgefield, particularly where there's these large properties away from the village, away from the central business district. They're having a lot of trouble this day and age in selling, and they still have not recovered from the real estate collapse of 08. So it must be very frustrating to be trying to sell a house around there, and then all of a sudden you find out that there's going to be 8 to 12 men who are trying to get straight moving in next door, and that there's that connotation you have of sober houses, rehabs, with a bunch of people standing outside smoking cigarettes, and killing time. And I don't know if that's what goes on here. But I think it's a very frustrating time right now, particularly if you spend a lot of money on a property to see that your neighbors are unable to sell their homes. What's
Right.
going to happen to your home?
Well, I think also that's true, and also there's a lot of big homes in town for sale. So people are thinking, well, could there be more than one sober house coming to town?
Right.
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 And also the fact is on this house, it's well-to-do people who have a lot of money. But as the owner told me, he could just as easily have made it a home for teenagers.
Right.
That's a whole different ballgame, you know?
And, just earlier this week, you guys had a story in the New Canaan Advertiser about a heroin overdose victim that was saved by police using Narcan. And I know police thanked Silver Hill Hospital, which is a rehab facility in a New Canaan residential area, for training them in the use of that. Do you think that it all sheds a different light on kind of the need for these facilities? And, as we saw in Ridgefield, it got withdrawn for a facility there. Do you think that kind of changes things at all, just with people seeing that happening in their town?
Well, it could, because, the heroin epidemic and the opioid epidemic are just like increasing nationwide and locally. And, the word is that there may be a need for these facilities more and more moving forward.
Yeah.
Treating people that need treatment is not a negative thing. It just happens to be like, the overriding concern is this, like, the helplessness of neighbors who think that anybody could just move in and do anything they want.
Right.
They're probably overreacting a little bit in terms of, like, thinking there's going to be major problems there. This house, the owners have said that there's never going to be more than 8 people in the house, and it's a huge house, and probably closer to 6 people at a time. And that was a court case in New Haven. Where the same concerns happened for the Turning Point, which is a facility in New Haven. And the town of New Haven was up in arms, the actual government, and told the facility that they should only have maybe 8 people at most. And the facility said, well, we may have to have a few more. And New Canaan sued the Turning Point, and it went to court. And the judge ruled they can have as many as 15 people there. He just looked at the size of the house and said, you have room for 15 people. Yeah. So New Canaan lost, and they also had to pay $350,000 damages. Right. So the courts have seemed to say that these facilities are going to exist, and obviously they can't break laws, but they don't fall under any local jurisdiction, no P&Z laws or regulations. And that's pretty much where it stands.
So they're kind of saying things could be worse. In some of the cities in Connecticut, they'll have halfway houses, sober houses, whatever you want to call them, where it's two guys to a room or something like that, and having a lot more people.
Yeah.
So this could be it could be something different. Of course, you probably wouldn't do that with a $6 million home too. At least not a for-profit business.
Yeah, and the owners. The owner was telling me. I didn't quite take his belief, but he was saying, like, well, it's better to have the halfway house than to have the house vacant. The house vacant might fall into disrepair, and he answered the questions I was asking him, and he's a very earnest guy, but he's kind of trying to weather the storm because he doesn't want to have problems, and people want their privacy there. And but it's a major topic right now.
Well, in Ridgefield, that was an over $6 million estate that they wanted to make into a rehab facility. Now, what's going to happen to that estate? You don't have many people wanting to just buy a home for that amount of money nowadays.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting to see what's going to happen to a lot of those big homes in wealthy communities like New Canaan, Ridgefield, others. If they're used for another purpose, though that upsets neighbors.
It's a possibility. That's an interesting point, because it's just like the real estate market is small houses are in right now, and they have been for the last couple of years, and they're going to continue to be in. So these major estates, first of all, whoever owns them is not going to get anywhere near probably what they paid for them.
Right.
But even just trying to sell them at all is going to be difficult. I understood the Ridgefield facility. From what I understood, they could have waited. They left on their own. They weren't forced out.
They were not forced out.
Pressure
but
from
the
town.
pressure from the neighbors, they say,
Right.
kind of forced them out, and they didn't want to create that kind of conflict within the town.
Yeah, I
so
see.
they
I
withdrew.
see.
They
Yeah.
did not get formal, disapproval from planning and zoning.
And I find it interesting that none of the town officials will really want to go on the record to say anything. They know
Same in Ridgefield.
they've been told by the town attorney, hands off.
Yeah.
So, they don't want to upset the citizens in town. Obviously, they're elected officials, some of these people. But they really have no power. So there's not much they can do about it.
I wonder if, they have the housing stock, maybe we could focus on a halfway house for out-of-work print journalists. There's the space
12,000 a month.
It's called the H&M Cruiser.
Granted, I would not want to live near any of those people.
All right.
Let me tell you, the house it's a beautiful house. You walk in it, it's stunning. It has a gorgeous pool out in the back. I mean, it's not the
I'd
worst
like
place
to
go for a couple
You
of
gonna
months.
check in, Kate? Maybe I think it's for men only. But,
All right. Well, Michael, thank you so much. We might keep you around, but people can follow more on that story at ncadvertiser.com. As you said, you're going to be talking to neighbors this week, so people can check that out. We're going to step out for a break. When we come back, we're going to talk state budget, some federal politics news, and a lot more coming up after this.
Want a new experience in car buying? No aggravation, no confrontation, just answers to all your questions. Scap Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. Car buying the way you want it to be. With one of the largest selections of new 2- and 4-door Jeep Wranglers available, we are Connecticut's Wrangler headquarters. Located in Fairfield, Connecticut, we're easy to get to. Just 2.5 miles off the Merritt Parkway, exit 44 via Route 58 South. Save thousands right now during the Start Something New sales event, now through January 31st.
Get a fresh start to the new year by shaking up your meal routine. Walter Stewart's Market is your local source for a delicious selection of fresh and convenient salad shakers, like Southwest salad with chicken, Cobb with organic chicken, Power Vegan with fruit and quinoa, Greek salad with tabbouleh, and grilled shrimp with hominy. Grab one from our salad case or order from our deli today. Walter Stewart's Market, 229 Elm Street, New Canaan, or shop online at stewartsmarket.com.
While there's still a bite out on the water, most anglers have decided to stow the gear for the winter. Just because Mother Nature isn't cooperating doesn't mean you can't see the latest models of all your favorite gear. With 2 convenient locations, it couldn't be easier to get your fix of summer. Boater, beach bum, fisherman, or simply love the New England coast, this is a unique place to shop. The Dock Shop, 51 Tokenique Road, Darien, 609 Riverside Avenue, Westport, or on the web, dockshop.com.
Whether you're looking for the freshest seafood, the perfect steak, or want to share delicious appetizers, look no further than the Stone's Throw in Seymour. Chef Peter Hom has more than 30 years of experience creating original recipes in his American eclectic style. Our dishes are made from scratch with fresh, local ingredients that pair perfectly with a seasonal craft beer, a signature cocktail, or your favorite wine. When you visit our Riverside location, you'll feel like you're on vacation when you're only a stone's throw from home. Visit us on Roosevelt Drive in Seymour or at StonesThrowCT.com.
It's all about meeting goals this year, and Trinity CrossFit of Ridgefield has experienced trainers, top-of-the-line equipment, and a newly renovated space to help get you there. Offering more classes per day than any other CrossFit gyms in the area, we cater to all fitness levels. Our coaches have a combined 10 years of experience in CrossFit, and as competitors themselves, Trinity coaches can get you ready for competition in 2017. Visit our convenient location on Route 7, Danbury Road, or find out more at trinitycrossfit.com.
If you're watching this broadcast, you're not alone. The HAN network is available for 200,000 Connecticut cable customers on the Frontier Network, and we've also reached 1.7 million viewers on our free live streaming sports, news, and entertainment broadcasts. To reach our rapidly growing audience, contact Advertising Director Jessica Murrin at 203-273-7312 or email jessica@han.network.
Welcome back to CT Pulse on the HAN Network. Kate Czaplinski with Josh Fisher. Now, Josh, we have some highlights reported by the Connecticut Mirror on Governor Malloy's budget.
Yeah, he's making the announcing it today, and of course, it still has to go through the General Assembly. So this is, but this is part of the proposal. Of course, if you remember, if you've been paying attention the past 6+ years, Kate, Governor Malloy's been getting a lot of grief over his budgets every 2 years, which in Connecticut we do them on a biannual basis, which in this case biannual means every 2 years, not twice a year. So the CT Mirror has done some good reporting as usual, and has gotten some information on what we're expected to see. So Malloy said he's going to rely on new revenue from fees and taxes to close about 40% of the projected shortfall in the state finances in this next state budget. The plan would scale back the income tax credit for the working poor and increase cigarette taxes by 45 cents per pack. So, some of the opponents are going to say that this is, on the back of the poor and the middle class, because It's just, where there's not many taxes. Without doing a straight up big tax increase, he has to pick and choose different fees to increase because, as usual in Connecticut, we over forecast how much money we might be coming in from the state, and it's like this Pollyanna hopefulness each budget season. And then when we get to the end of the budget, we say, oh my God, we didn't, not as many houses sold as we expected, so there wasn't as much conveyance tax money. Not as many people bought cigarettes as we expected, so we have to raise the cigarette taxes
Even though we don't really
more.
want them to buy cigarettes.
No, but I mean, but the thing is though, like, they always say, a cigarette tax is a poor tax. It's kind of like the lottery. Also, it's a disproportionate amount of people who smoke cigarettes are poor people. So doing these sorts of things create hardship, and then you could say that also then leads to more healthcare costs because generally poor people are not as educated about the harms of things like cigarettes, and that's a 45-cent increase per pack on cigarettes, as we mentioned. The plan also aims to generate $90 million over 2 years through a tax amnesty program, which would eliminate 36-year-old law on minimum bottle pricing for alcohol, which, Kate, good news for you. It would allow people to sell alcohol for less, right? You get wine for less right now in Connecticut.
Exciting.
There's a limit. You can't discount wine, but you can over the line in New York State, or I believe in Massachusetts also. But they think that this would help sell more wine here, which would give us
A little bit more money.
more money. But again, that's almost like a change in the syntaxes, so to speak, like when we introduced Keno.
Though I have to say, most people, if you want to buy wine, I don't think you're really paying attention to the extra tax on it.
No, but like you are saying though, say if you're having a party and you want to buy a case of wine,
true.
you can't get a discount in Connecticut, but you can go over the line into Westchester County and get a discount on a case of wine, or order through the mail and get a discount on a case of wine. But now another way to think too, and this is like a classic Malloy thing, saying you're going to cut taxes, but it's really just shifting the burden of taxes. They plan to bill cities and towns now for more than $400 million per year to cover state pensions for municipal teachers. They used to come out of the state. Now it's just going to be, so you got to think that the towns will have more, so they're just going to shift, obviously, that burden into property taxes, most likely. They want to eliminate the $200 property tax credit for middle-income families within the state. Malloy City focused primarily on changes to tax credits and exemptions rather than boosting tax rates. But you could say that if you're going to cut a property tax credit, that's also a tax increase. So the plan would increase taxes by about $190 million per year in the first year of this budget, which is the 2017 through 2018 budget. The overall hike would reach $210 million by 2019. The tax budget increase in the new budget involves canceling the property tax credit, like we mentioned before, which would cost about 874,000 middle-class income tax filers, about $105 million total per year. That's according to nonpartisan analysts, according to the CT Mir. Governor would also reduce an income tax credit for the working poor, like we talked about. That would scale back Connecticut's earned income tax credit. It would be about $25 million per year for the state. And Malloy's budget would generate about $60 million annually. That's through the increases on cigarettes, cigars, and other tobacco products. So a pack of cigarettes right now in Connecticut, the state tax only is $3.90. This would bump up to $4.35 per pack. Still less than in New York State. But there is some good news. There are some tax reductions, Kate. That list is a little bit shorter. The governor plans
That list is way shorter.
plans to reduce the state and gift tax in 3 steps. But that would not start until 2019, but it would change some of the income thresholds for that. It would save taxpayers about $20 million in the second year of the new budget. The governor would also reduce the insurance premium tax, saving insurance companies, the big talk about Aetna possibly moving. That would save insurance companies $11 million in the first year of this new budget, $22 million in the second year. And finally, the governor hopes to generate about $90 million over the next 2 fiscal years. That's combined by reducing charges on tax delinquents. This would mark the 6th tax amnesty program the state government has offered since 1990, so we do one about every 5 years. Which the interesting thing about that is that these people owe the state money, but we're going to give them more tax amnesty just to get some of their money.
Well, and Josh, interesting highlights of that budget. I'm sure people can find more at ctmirror.org.
I'm excited, Kate. I'm not normally excited for budget stuff.
I feel like you are, actually.
A little bit excited.
Yeah.
I'm a little excited because they're going to have to. Republicans will get a little bit more say this year since there's a split in the state Senate. So that could force maybe some, generally speaking, the Republicans in Connecticut would mean less taxes for all of us. The Democrats generally mean a lot more taxes for all of us and more deficits.
All right. Well, before we take our next break, just an update on a story we talked about last week on CT Pulse that we wanted to tell you about, and that's a Syrian refugee family. Two of the girls and the wife of Fadi Khazar were separated, and they had visas to come to the U.S. Their father lives in Milford now, and the girls, their photos had been used actually on the Senate floor by U.S. Senator Chris Murphy to talk about his feelings against the ban that in the executive order signed by President Donald Trump. There was a reunion. Over 100 well-wishers gathered at the Olive Tree in Milford to welcome the family who did make it over, and that included U.S. Senators Richard Blumenthal and Chris Murphy, who were among dignitaries on hand to greet the family. You can get a lot more on that family story at milfordmirror.com. But we are going to step out for a break, and when we come back, we're going to be talking snow with Jacob Mizell of swctweather.com after this.
At the Milford Bank, we offer an extensive selection of lending products and services to meet virtually any need. Submit your application online in our Mortgage Web Center. Start to finish, you can apply for a loan in as little as 10 minutes. Our knowledgeable and helpful staff are available to meet with you at your convenience. To learn more about what we can do for you, stop by one of our Milford Bank offices or visit us at milfordbank.com. The Milford Bank, always there. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Let our satisfied customers tell it.
I have called Mr. Handyman for every reason, every occasion, every broken item, every leak. They have bailed me out on many occasions, and I would recommend them to anyone.
For any project, large or small.
MrHandymanCT.com. Have a sports injury or slip and fall that needs immediate care? Coastal Ortho Express Urgent Care gives you direct access to an orthopedic specialist fast, without an appointment. Basketball, hockey, skiing, whatever the sports injury is, sprain or fracture, Coastal Ortho Express can help. Coastal Ortho Express Urgent Care open Monday through Saturday, now in 2 locations. The iPark building at 761 Main Avenue in Norwalk and 36 Old Kings Highway South in Darien. Or go to coastalorthoexpress.com, like them on Facebook.
We told Dad he could have his office back if he sold 150 cars last month.
Deal's a deal.
Well, Dad, you did it. You get your office back.
Forget it. I'm having too much fun down here. My new goal, 160 cars. Wow. Folks, if you ever wanted a great price on a new Nissan, now is the time.
Right now, lease a 2017 Altima 2.5S for only $99 a month.
Isn't it time you got Millerized?
At InSports Trumbull, the game is always on inside. Recently renovated and home to one of Connecticut's largest indoor turf fields, InSports is a multi-sport recreation center providing state-of-the-art facilities for league play, camps, and youth programs. Sign your child up now for InSports Future Stars Basketball Academy, teaching skills on the basketball court for boys and girls ages 5 through 9. Visit InSportsCenters.com for more information on this 7-week program. And for adults, spots are also still available for our men's 30 and over and 40 and over leagues. Like and follow us on Facebook.
I'm Frank Granito.
And I'm Donald Ing for the HAN Network.
Tune in to Nutmeg Sports Monday through Thursday, where we bring you all the top stories from Connecticut sports.
From highlights to player interviews and expert analysis, no one gets you closer to Connecticut's games than Nutmeg Sports.
Nutmeg Sports, now Monday through Thursday at 2 p.m. on the HAN Network.
Welcome back to CT Pulse on the HAN Network, along with Kate Czaplinski. I'm Josh Fisher. And with all due respect to our own Frank Granito, when it comes to forecasting weather and following big storms, down here in southwestern Connecticut, it doesn't get any better than Jacob Mizell and swctweather.com. Jacob's kind enough to join us on the phone. A senior at Harvard University right now, Jacob has been rather successfully, I must say, forecasting and following storms down here in Connecticut since you were a student at Staples High School. Thanks for joining us, Jacob.
Thank you for having me.
Go ahead, Kate.
Now, Jacob, it's hard to believe there's going to be this big snowstorm. So what the heck is happening? Why are we seeing record high temperatures
Because it's
today?
almost 60 degrees outside,
Yeah, and welcome February, New England. It's really something where we're having a rapid succession of storms just kind of lining up over the next week, really. After what's been a really calm winter, not too many storm threats, and really quite mild as well. We're seeing a strong frontal boundary move through, bring in fresh cold air right as this storm kind of forms along it and then rapidly intensifies enough that you're going to see this really heavy precipitation. In a lot of ways, the storm's able to tap into some of the mild air that we're seeing today that's going to create some of the very intense snowfall rates that have me concerned about how significant the impacts could be. We're talking snowfall rates anywhere from 1 to 2, even isolated amounts of up to 3 inches per hour are possible. A couple models showing a 10, 20, 30% chance of thunder snow tomorrow as well. And so this mild air is going to act as the fuel as that cold air rapidly pours in overnight tonight into the storm tomorrow.
So, Jacob, I know you keep an eye on all these different models that are going on. So, and this is one of those storms, I'm gathering from what you're saying, they could kind of have a really broad snowfall total, right? So we see some people now saying up to 14 inches, but also it could be, what, as little as a couple inches if things change?
So I actually just in the past 45 minutes issued a new update to my clients, raising those snowfall totals now that the confidence is really there. And even just in the past 10, 15 minutes, we saw the latest European weather model come out, which that was kind of one of the last holdouts. It's really come around now too, and is showing significant accumulations across the region of about 10 to 11 inches. Now, my going range right about now is coastal areas and even just a bit inland, looking in an 8 to 15 inch range. It's a pretty wide range because we're looking at what could be significant banding, where one small community could see those snowfall rates of 2 to 3 inches per hour, and then where the banding's not as intense, it's closer to 1 inch per hour. Further inland, around Interstate 84 and a bit further north, I'm at around 6 to 13 inches. I'm seeing the latest modeling is showing accumulations are going to be a bit less. There's the best forcing, the best banding is going to be a little more to the south and east. But at this point, I would say everyone across the region can really begin locking in 6 to 8 inches of snow. It's just a matter of how much more it's going to be on top of that.
Wow. Now, Jacob, when can we see this starting and really moving into the area seriously?
So the first snowfall is expected generally around 5 or 6 a.m. tomorrow morning. There could be a couple little sleet, rain, or even snow showers overnight between 1 and 5 a.m. But 5 to 6 a.m. is that real time we can expect to get it going. And by 7 a.m., I expect the main precipitation shield to be overspreading the region. Now, as always, give or take about an hour, models tend to struggle with the exact start time of any specific storm, but it will be a broad precipitation shield moving in sometime around 6 a.m. And by 7 a.m. and 8 a.m. at the absolute latest, travel conditions are going to be getting pretty bad pretty quickly.
So one of the things that I think really helped you make your mark and build up your following early on, Jacob, was your closed or canceled and delay predictions for the school districts in Fairfield County. What's the percentage at for school tomorrow?
So this one's pretty easy.
Yeah.
Based off of the severity of the snowfall and the timing, the intensity of the system, I see no way that schools across the region are able to open tomorrow at all. And in fact, in an update that I just sent out, I said the main focus is going to be on Friday. In some of those communities where you see the heaviest accumulations, should we see amounts in the 13, 14, 15-inch range, we could see carryover delays or even closures into the day on Friday as school districts have to try and figure out where to put all this snow.
Wow.
So tomorrow, the confidence is there that we can begin banking on a snow day. I don't say that unless the confidence is at 100%, and the latest update I just sent out was a 100% chance of closures tomorrow. The real question is now, are there going to be any lingering impacts into the day on Friday?
Right. So say tomorrow on Thursday you really have to get to work. Is this the type of thing where if you leave early enough at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning, you get to your office and you could stay there all day long, that the storm will be gone, you'll be able to get home later in the evening? I'm talking about Kate here.
That's the thing with this storm, is the reason we're avoiding the worst of the impacts is because it is an extremely quick moving system.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to come in, it's going to hit hard, 7 a.m. to 12 p.m., you're going to be looking at real heavy snow, and then it's on its way out. And so if you absolutely have to travel, you have to get in work, leave early, 4 a.m., 5 a.m.
Wow.
That's when things are that's when that precipitation is just going to be arriving. Get to the office, and there will still be impacts through the evening. This is a lot of snow that's falling in a short period of time, but by the evening, I do expect travel conditions to gradually begin to improve.
Okay, well, that's a little bright spot of good news. Well, Jacob, you keep everyone updated on Twitter at SWCT Weather and at SWCTweather.com. And, you know, we're going to be snowcasting tomorrow here on HAN, so we'd love to talk to you again tomorrow.
Yeah, I would be happy to give you updates as the storm unfolds in real time, and I'll be watching for exactly where that strongest banding sets up, because that'll be the difference between just that moderate snowstorm of 8 or 9 inches or the more impressive accumulations of a foot plus, where someone in Connecticut's getting them. It's just a matter of kind of where that banding sets up.
Oh, all right, Jacob Mizell, thank you so much for talking with us today.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jacob.
And as we said, Josh, we're going to be snowcasting tomorrow on the HAN network. Myself and Frank Granito will be here. 8:30 a.m. will be our first stormcast. Then we'll be back at 10:30 with news and weather, and then again at noon. Well, noon or 12:30. We'll figure that out.
But it'll be great. It'll be a great day tomorrow for you to get some nice live local weather coverage. It's great when we can have someone like Jacob, who I think we're really fortunate to have. Someone like Jacob covering the weather down here in this area, because he's an expert and he pores over all these different models and really understands it and can explain it. His website's great, his Twitter feed is great, and it's nice to partner up with him whenever we can. Kate and Frank will be providing live coverage. We'll have videos from all over the region. You're of course welcome to send us.
With support of our reporters.
Oh, of course. Well, yeah, that's who's going to be out there in the field getting cold while Frank and Kate are
while we stay warm in studio.
Staying warm, drinking hot cocoa. But it'll be great. This is the nice thing we hope about this storm is when it falls is that most people can be safe and enjoy a nice winter storm here in Connecticut.
And like you said, if you get storm videos, please send them to us. You can tweet them at HAN Network CT.
And you can find our contact form right at HAN.network.
All right. Well, we are going to wrap things up here on CT Pulse. If you missed anything, you can catch us on demand at HAN.network. Nutmeg Sports coming up at 2 o'clock. And, of course, Stormcast first thing tomorrow morning, 8:30. Well, not first thing, but at 8:30. We'll see you then. Have a great day.